Hello, I am Petru from Gulian Technology. In today's video I would like to show you how to configure IPv6 routing on Cisco routers. So make sure to watch to the end, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video and visit my website gulian.uk. Let's get started. In this lab I will configure IPv6 addresses on all router interfaces. I will configure static routing, and in the end I will check the connectivity from PC1 to PC2. IPv6 addresses are already configured on PC1 and PC2. In this lab, as you can see, I am using Cisco Packet Tracer. If you want to follow along, please visit my website gulian.uk, where you can find the instructions for installation of Packet Tracer, and you can also find there the .pkt file for this lab. I will start first by configuring the IPv6 addresses on the router R1. Let's go to the CLI interface and start the configuration. IPv6 addresses are configured as any IPv4 address. You need to go in the interface configuration mode by first going to the global config mode. By default, IPv6 unicast-routing is not enabled on Cisco routers, so you'll need to enable it if you want to use IPv6 routing. For this, you need to configure the command IPv6 unicast-routing. Let's now configure the IPv6 address for the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0. I will go in the interface configuration mode by running the command interface gi 0/0. The IPv6 address is configured with the command IPv6 address, and here you need to add the IPv6 address. So in our case is 2001:db8:1:1 and the prefix length is 64. Now you need to enable the interface with the command no shutdown. We received a message that tells us that the interface is enabled and it's changed its state to up. Now let's configure the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/1. So I'll go in the interface configuration mode and I will add the command IPv6 address. We need to allocate an IP address from this range. I will allocate the first IP address to the R1 router and the second IP address to the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 for the router R2. So let's add the IP address for the gigabit Ethernet 0/1. So 2001:db8:2:1 and the prefix length is 64. Now we need to enable the interface with the command no shutdown, and we need to check that both interfaces are configured with the right IP addresses and are in an up running state. For this, run the command show IPv6 interface brief. This is a command similar to IPv4, but it's for IPv6. As we can see, the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 is in the state up. It has the IP address 2001:db8:1:1 and the link local IPv6 address FE80:200:4AFF:FE80:8201. And this is a link local IPv6 address, and this is a global IPv6 address. We will use for static routing the global IPv6 addresses. The gigabit Ethernet 0/1 interface is also in it's in an up-down state. This is because the interface R2 is still in the down state. We will check its status after configuring also the interface on the router R2. Let's go now to the router R2 and let's configure both interfaces with IPv6 addresses. Press enter here. Let's go to enable mode. Let's go to the global config mode by running the command configure terminal, and from here let's enable the IPv6 unicast routing. Now let's add the IP address for the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and the IPv6 address for this interface is 2001:db8:2:2, and the prefix length is 64. Now let's enable the interface with the command no shutdown. The interface changed its state to up. Let's now configure the interface gigabit 0/1. I will go in the interface configuration mode. This interface should have an IP address from this range 2001:db8:3:/64. I will allocate the first IP address for R2 and the second IP address for R3. So I will add the command IPv6 address 2001:db8:3:1 and the prefix length 64, and I will enable the interface with the command no shutdown. Let's check the status of the interfaces of the configured interfaces with the command show IPv6 interface brief command. Interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 is in an up state. The gigabit Ethernet 0/1 is in an up-down state because we need to configure the interfaces for R3 router. Now let's go there and do this task. I will press enter here. I will go to enable mode. I will write the configure terminal command, and I will enable the IPv6 unicast routing. Next, I will configure the interface gigabit 0/1. Interface gigabit 0/1, and the IPv6 address is 2001:db8:3:2, and the prefix length is 64. Now we need to enable the interface with the no shutdown command, and let's configure the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0. The IPv6 address for this interface is 2001:db8:4:1, and the prefix length is /64. I will enable the interface with the no shutdown command, and I will exit from the configuration mode. Now let's verify the status for both interfaces. Both interfaces are in an up state. This is good. Now we finished the configuration of IPv6 addresses on all devices. The next task is to configure static routing. I will close this window. We need to configure a couple of static routes on all of our three routers. On router R1, we need to configure a static route for the CIDR range 2001:db8:3:/64, and a second route for 2001:db8:4:/64, because R1 doesn't know about these routes. On R2, we need to configure a static route for this CIDR range and a static route for this CIDR range. And on R3, we need to configure two static routes. One is for the CIDR range 2001:db8:2:/64, and the other one is for the CIDR range 2001:db8:1:/64. Of course, you can configure an IPv6 default route if you want, or you can configure two static routes. I will start configuring the static routing on router R1. So, as I mentioned, on R1 doesn't know about these two CIDR ranges. I will start to configure a static route for this CIDR range and a second one for this one. So let's get started. Let's go to enable mode. We are already in enable mode. Let's change to the global config mode by running the command conf terminal, and the IPv6 route, the static route command is added with the command IPv6 static route, IPv6 route, and the CIDR range. We need to specify the CIDR range. In our case is 2001:3:/64. The next hop IPv6 address is the IPv6 address configured for the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 on router R2, and this is the IP address 2001:db8:2:2. So the next hop is 2001:db8:2:2, and we need to press enter. Now we need to add a second IPv6 route for the CIDR range 2001:db8:4:/64. I will press the up arrow key and I will change this from 3 to 4 and I will press enter. Static routing is configured on router R1. If you want to check the routes, you need to run the command show IPv6 route. As you can see, we have two static routes here. Now let's go to router R2 and configure the static routing on this one also. I will go to global config mode. I will add the IPv6 static route with the command IPv6 route, and R2 needs to have a static route for this CIDR range, so I will start with this one, 2001:1:/64, and the next hop is the router R1, so I'll add the IPv6 address 2001:db8:1:1, and I'll press enter. Now we need to add the second IPv6 route for this CIDR range. I will press on the up arrow key. I will change the CIDR range to this one, and I need to change the next hop address from this one to this one. So the next hop will be the router R3, which has the IP address 2001:db8:3:2, and I will press enter and I'll exit from the configuration mode command. I will save a config and I will check the routing table for IPv6 with the command show IPv6 route. We have the confirmation that I don't see that. I see one route, this one, but I do not see the second one. Let's check with the command show IPv6 route, and let's specify the CIDR range 2001:1:/64, and let's press enter. Route not found. Let's go back to the global config mode and add this route. I believe I added it, but I don't know why it was not saved in the configuration. So let's go back to the global config mode and let's copy this route one more time. So IPv6 route, the CIDR range is 2001:db8:1:/64, and the next hop is 2001:db8:2 should be. I made the mistake. :2 should be :1. and let's remove this one. So the routing, the static route was not in the routing table because R2 didn't have a route for the next hop IPv6 address. This is why. Now if we go back to the and check the routing table for the router R2, we should see both static routes. This is one static route and this is the second static route. Okay, let's go now to R3 and configure an IPv6 static route here. Instead of configuring two static routes, I will configure the IPv6 default route and I will specify the next hop, the router R2. So let's go to global config mode and let's add the default static route. The default static route is like this, IPv6 route. I missed the command. And the next hop, as I mentioned, is 2001:db8:3:1. I'll press enter and I will check the routing table for the router R3 with the command show IPv6 route. As you can see here, we have a default static route on R3. Now we finished the task 2. Let's check and ensure that PC1 is able to ping PC2. I will open the UI for the PC1. I'll go to desktop and from here I will go to the command prompt. I will check its IPv6 address with the ipconfig command. As you can see, here we have the IPv6 address for PC1. I will try to ping the PC2, which has the IP address 2001:db8:4:10. And let's see if the connectivity is successful or not. The first packet is okay to time out, but the second one is not okay. It seems that I made the mistake. So what I will do, I will start to ping one host at a time. I will start by pinging R1 interface gigabit 0/0, R2 R1 interface gigabit 0/1, and after R2 and after R3, in order to identify where I made the mistake and why I am not able to ping the PC2. Okay, so I will start with ping 2001:db8:1, and the default gateway, as we know, is this one. So let's check if we are able to ping the default gateway. It seems that we are able to ping the router R1. It is our default gateway. Now let's try to ping the IPv6 address configured on the gigabit interface 0/1, which is this one. It's 2::1. Let's see if we are able to reach that interface, and we are. Now let's check the connectivity to router R2 gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and it has an IP address 2001:db8:2:2, and we are able to reach R2. Now let's check if we are able to reach R2 on its second interface. The second interface has this IP address, and let's see if we are able to reach it. We are able to ping R2 on both interfaces. Now let's check the connectivity to router R3. R3 has also two IPv6 addresses. One is this one, and we are able to ping R3, and the second one is this one. So the IP address 2001:db8:4:1. and I am able to ping R3, but I am not able to ping PC2. Okay, so this means that I made a mistake on PC2. Let's go to check the configuration on PC2. I'll go here, I'll go to desktop, and I will go to command prompt, and I will check the configuration for PC2. So PC2 has the IPv6 address 2001:db8:4:10, and the default gateway is this is where I made the mistake. So instead of specifying the IPv6 address of R3, which is the default gateway for PC2, I added the same IPv6 address. So let's change this IP address by going to IP configuration mode, and for default gateway we need to have the IPv6 address 2001:db8:4:1, and let's exit from here. Let's confirm that the new configuration was applied successfully, and we have the confirmation here. We have a right default gateway now. Let's go back to PC1 and check if we are able to reach PC2. And this time the connectivity is successful and everything is working fine. Let's check that PC2 is able to ping PC1. I will run the command ping 2001:db8:1:10, and as you can see, PC2 is able to ping PC1, to reach PC1. This is all from my side. In this lab we learned how to configure IPv6 addresses on router interfaces. We learned how to enable IPv6 unicast routing, because IPv6 unicast routing, as I mentioned, is not enabled by default on Cisco routers, and we have configured IPv6 static routing on all routers from this lab. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for other videos related to Cisco networking or to Linux. Until next time, bye!